Like, this is how gardening happens in Florida during this time of year. So, hey guys, Donna here, Hazel Bell Farm, with a little bit of a garden update. So you see here I'm in the garden. It is July 3rd and it's in a bit of disarray. I think maybe it was in a bit of disarray the last time I showed you the garden, but it's done very well. It's fed us very well. It's just that time of year. So I have been gardening in the early morning or the late evening if possible. Now that's difficult for me because that's also when I milk cows. So, you know, here in Northeast Florida, the weather fluctuates from day to day, week to week. But in July, June and July, you can pretty much guarantee you're gonna have hot, you're gonna have muggy, and it's just a matter of how hot and how muggy. And rain is hit or miss. So June was very, very rough on the garden, as it usually is. We went from hot and dry to hot and wet to back to hot and dry. I say dry, but the air is still very, very wet. And we had some flooding rain, which you can see the weeds really enjoyed. So that's something I've been working on over the last week in the early morning when I can get out here. Filling up this mineral tub with weeds, dumping it into my compost a couple of times every morning. So I figured I'd just pick up the camera today and show you what we're doing. I want to see the sunflower though. It looked like it had a weird shape from the other side. Isn't that pretty? I love the sunflowers. I like to add them here and there and everywhere. This one's a little bit droopy already. I'm not sure why. It must just have a very heavy head on it. I don't know. So this is one of the beds I haven't gotten to yet. And you can see this Bermuda grass has just crept in everywhere, along with some other kinds of weeds between both of these two beds. Need lots of attention. But the sunflower is planted in the middle of some strawberries with a row of tomatoes along the cattle panel trellis, which looks pretty rough. We'll talk about that maybe another day. And some blank space where we had some garlics that really didn't do anything. You can see these here. I'm debating on leaving these or pulling them out. I don't know. We'll see. So one reason I haven't really been making videos is just because we've been so busy. And the only time I can get out here in the garden is early in the morning, like I said, or late in the evening. And that's just so rushed because I'm also milking. I'm also trying to get dinner on the table for my family. It's just been weird and awkward. And when I do garden, I get so sweaty. This is ugly gardening. It's an ugly garden and an ugly gardener. So I had some negative comments once before about how I look in the garden, and I kind of got self-conscious about it. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, whatever. Like, this is how gardening happens in Florida during this time of year. So it's like athletic wear. I carry a washcloth to wipe my face and trying to protect my face and my ears from the sun. So this bed right here is empty. I had planted green beans in it, and I had a deer come in and clean them out. So at the end of this bed, you see here, I have a blackberry that has come up in 3 spots here. Now this is a shoot that ran off of this plant over here. So it's an underground shoot where it has rooted there, and these have shot up from the root. I think I'm gonna dig those out and put them in pots. And I have a few others over there that I can add into the garden where I want them to be. I really don't want to use up this bed with blackberry. And then I have a volunteer watermelon here, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to leave it. I have a couple of peanuts. This is where I grew peanuts last year. So once I dig this out, I'm going to have some extra space here, and I'm going to go ahead and sow some other plants. But this half is all completely blank. So I have here some white acre peas I'm gonna go ahead and sow. I'm also gonna drop these in a couple other places in the garden so that they can get going here, there, and everywhere. you could poke those seeds down into the soil one at a time, but as cheap as those were, I like to just dig the furrow, overseed, and then come back and thin plants as needed. I am gonna poke these in the ground. These are some sugar baby bush watermelons. I'm gonna put 2 seeds in at a time. In 3 little places. Where'd that go? Okay, here we go. There you. All right, now that is not going to be a lot of white acre peas as far as putting on the shelf. We'll get a meal or 2 out of that much. So I always say when you plant things like green beans or other legumes like peas, southern peas, you want to plant a lot. So I like to fit those in everywhere. I'm going to do that over this whole next week, and we'll have plenty of peas to pick and store until next year. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm back over at the sweet potato bed. I had several sweet potato slips that I pulled out of the ground that were volunteering off of potatoes I missed last year and even the year before. So I pulled them out of the ground, I dropped them in a jar. They've been growing new roots for new slips, and I'm gonna go ahead and plant them here. Now, sweet potatoes need about 120 to 140 days of frost-free temperatures to be able to produce well for you. I have at least that right now, so I'm not concerned. Depending on where you're growing will determine whether or not it's too late for you to plant sweet potatoes or not. We're getting there. It's crunch time. Need to get them in the ground, so we'll go ahead and do that today. So these have been sitting on my windowsill in my kitchen. And I'm just going to tease them apart. You want to do this when the roots are at least 6 inches long. Kind of stretching it here, but I really want to get them in the ground. Plus, these are all extras, so whatever I get, I get. These are going to do better. I'm excited to add some extras. Plus, I didn't have to buy these. They had a caterpillar on them in the windowsill I found yesterday. So they got a little bit of bug damage, even in my kitchen. It's terrible. All right, let's plant. Now another thing you can see that is past finished here are cucumbers. So here are some straggling last of the cucumbers that these are pickling cucumbers, obviously much bigger than you'd want to pick. So I can grab seeds out of these. These are to the point of rotting, which is fine if you're just using them for seeds. I need to pull all these vines out, and I'm going to start something else on this trellis. I'm actually going to save that trellis for tomatoes, for fall tomatoes, so that I can kind of rotate and not just put tomatoes where I had them in the spring and summer. So I'm going to save that trellis for tomatoes, but once the cucumbers are finished, they really only run like a 6 to 8 week course, and you can succession sow that so that you stretch your season. I didn't do so well at that this year like I intended to, but so ours are finished. But the answer to that is the Armenian cucumber. Technically a melon, tastes like a cucumber, very heat tolerant, very prolific. I'm going to go ahead and sow some of these seeds. Once again, I'm going to dig a furrow on this trellis. There's some good soil in here from where I had cucumbers already. Finished. I'm not going to sow these like I did the white acre peas. I will sow them more sparingly. These are new seeds. I have found that these seeds tend to go bad rather quickly. So these are new seeds. I'm still gonna sow a lot. They're about 6 inches apart. And I'm probably gonna wanna thin that out every other one once they germinate. Cover them over. You don't want them too deep. You could just poke these right in also. Okay, it's getting a little toasty. I'm almost finished out here for the day. I'll be doing kitchen chores, I think. I'm gonna set up the sprinkler where those sweet potatoes are. I wanted to directly water those new slips that I just put in, but I'm gonna run the sprinkler so the whole bed gets good and wet for a while. One last thing I think I wanna talk about are green beans. Our green beans are finished. It's way too hot for green beans here now, unless you provide some kind of shade. However, you can grow the noodle bean. So I seeded these pretty heavily. I'm getting ready to thin them now. This is the noodle bean. They grow fast. They'll climb this trellis. This also had cucumbers on it that I've pulled out. And then they'll grow a nice, beautiful, long red bean, also called the yard-long bean. These are just fun to grow, and it's a nice alternative to green beans when the season is too hot for those. So I'm just gonna pull these and feed them to the rabbits. I'm leaving the stronger ones. I probably should be snipping these instead of pulling them because beans don't like their roots to be disturbed. But these are very hardy beans as far as a bean goes. I thought somebody was here. It's just the sheep over here banging on the gate. Beans don't generally take a lot of nutrients, so I don't feel like they're seeded too heavily at this point, that they're growing too thickly at this point. Here's my bunnies. Here, bun-buns. So I have 3 pretty rabbits here. They're meat rabbits, but I'm not keeping them for meat. If we have to, we will, but I don't think that will be the case. They're just here for producing poop. So they're eating lots of garden scraps, and they do get a good pellet also. I need to fill up their water again. It's so hot. So the cool thing about these rabbits is I just modified a chicken tractor. They're in an 8x4 space of a tractor. I added chicken wire to the bottom so they can't dig out. Before I put them in here, I had them in a dog cage for just a couple of days, and there was one of them did keep getting out, but they're so socialized. She just kind of hung out here in the garden. She didn't do much damage. She was kind of fun to have. So I do let them out a little bit here and there, and that is fun. They come right back to me, and I can put them away, so that's fun. So you can see this whole section, this whole end of the garden is not really a growing space. It's just kind of an empty space right now. I intended it to be kind of like cottage garden, but it's going to take some time to get to that. I don't see it happening anytime soon. So the idea with these guys is I can pull this tractor around and they eat the grass. They've already eaten this down several times. So far it's working just as I anticipated, other than the tractor is bulky to get around this tree and around my swing. But I'm able to do it. So it's pretty cool. And then this whole compost area, there's all kinds of stuff growing in that. I need to get that under control. I hope to make a proper composting bin system here, but we'll see. But right now, this Tithonia volunteered, and I'm here for it. So pretty. The bees love it. There's a lot of zinnias over there too. There's a fig back there somewhere. And then there's potatoes and sweet potatoes growing out of the compost. I think there's a squash in there. It's just kind of a whatever. Whatever's happening is happening, and I'm letting it happen. So check this out. This is my Barbados cherry tree, and it has some gorgeous flowers all over. I'm super excited about this one. We've tried a couple of times with Barbados cherry and haven't had great luck. I bought this one on sale at my local Ace, really at the start of spring this year, and it's doing great. So I planted it in a mineral tub so that hopefully when our frosts and freezes come this winter, I can move it to my back porch and protect it from the cold weather. It's more of a tropical plant. And we're in kind of a borderline tropical temperate zone, so that kind of makes growing a little difficult at that time of year. So anyways, it's doing great. I look forward to lots of cherries growing on this tree. I look forward to showing you guys more of what's happening in the garden. That's going to be it for today. It's too hot. I'm finishing up. I have some other projects to get to inside, and that's where I will be until evening. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I hope you'll share with a friend. Until next time, bye.